real estate consultant, coming to you again with another series of investor insight. This time, 2022, March the 2nd. We're with my guy Lewis from Electrical Solutions. He done some actual work for me on one of my investment properties. We're standing in a new construction, new build, and what we want to do is talk about different aspects of the business real quickly. I already did a video of the inside of this, so you and your guys wired this whole homeowner.
Exactly.
So on this one right here, y'all did everything. So basically, how does it work when you're doing new construction? You team up with either the developer, the builder, and kind of lay out like a map in terms of how many lights going where. How does that come to fruition?
So basically, what the developer does is get with the engineer, and then they drop a blueprint, and they get everything done, measurements, door, windows, and what they want to do. And then what I have to do is look at the blueprint and size the panel up, size the wire up, whatever it needs, and then we just take it from there, man. You know, I get a material list and put it together.
So this one right here is about how many square feet? Roughly about 2,000, just a little under 2,000.
This one right here is like 1,800.
1,800 square feet.
1,800 square feet.
So 1,800 square feet. So to get to the rough ends that you have now, about typically how long does that process take?
If you got a good team like mine, man, it's gonna take you about 3 days, you know.
But on average,
about 3 days.
About 3 days.
Mm-hmm. 3 days on the rough end, 1 full day on the exterior service, 1 full day with wiring up the breakers, and then maybe about a day and a half, 2 days to actually trim it out.
Okay.
But that's a process because we have to work with other trades. Plumber isn't ready, if he didn't get his inspection, the framers, the sheetrockers, the painters, you know, the carpet men, everybody has to kind of work in sequence.
Yeah, okay, too. So on the permit part, like how quick is the city kind of getting back with you in terms of being able to make that happen, you know, because sometimes I know, given all that we've been through dealing with COVID, you know, things before COVID was probably moving a little smoother. So where is that at in the process right now? And I know you can't speak, you know, too much about it just because you don't want them to see it.
It's all good.
And then start slowing up your process even more. But just try to give the investors, the general public, just some insight on that.
Well, I feel like it all depends on who you are and who you know, and then also who knows you.
Yeah,
so the thing is that, man, if you have some either non-experienced electrician or someone who's been given code enforcement a problem, it might take 48 to 72 hours. But me, you know, man, I can get right on the computer and I can get a permit the next day, just because they know that I'm not here to play games. I'm not coming with the red tags. You know, I'm here to do my job. So if you was to say, hey, Lewis, man, I got a project, I need it done pretty quick. Can you pull a permit? Boom, I do it that night. It's there the next morning.
Okay, cool. So that's smooth. So COVID hasn't affected that aspect of your business too much.
I don't feel like COVID really affected my trade because we're essential.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
They need us.
So you both definitely one of those essential workers for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, man, my thing is our biggest problem is really getting material. So, yes, you know what? COVID-19 did affect us with getting products in, getting supplies in. Most supply houses, you know, with these semi trucks, they're taking forever. But one of the things that I did to offset that is I go to the material store and I buy a bunch of stock. I have 10 boxes, 10 boxes of 50 boxes, 4 panels, 15 meters,
and that
20
makes sense too, because you know at some point, especially now, we're in the early part of spring, so the chances of you holding on to that even between now and May is extremely low.
Right. I got all my devices and stuff like that, so you know, really the thing that I buy now is really for future work.
Oh, okay, I got you. So you just kind of stop. You're reinvesting back into the business in terms of inventory.
Most definitely, you got to bet on yourself.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. So after y'all do the rough end, you get everything approved with code. Then you all come back and actually put the light fixtures and stuff up.
Well, in this case, we got the can lights in, and so that is a particular light fixture itself.
Correct.
So when they put the sheetrock up on these can lights, we just put the trims on and the bulbs on. But like ceiling fans in, stuff like that, once they paint it, once they sheetrock, mudded, taped, painted, and depending on if they want the homeowner, if they want us to wait on the floor. Once we get that done, then we'll get into the stage of trimming it out, putting the receptacles in place.
Okay, well that makes sense. But listen, I'm glad you allowed us to stop through. I know
Yes,
we got
sir.
another stop we're gonna
Yes,
make,
sir.
but take one. Phase 2 coming up soon in terms of our interview with Electrical Solutions, my guy Lewis.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate it, man.
At another location with my guy Lewis from Electrical Solutions. And so we did a walkthrough already. You'll be seeing that playing in the background as we talk about this one right here. So since the COVID situation happened, you came out. How long you been an electrician?
15 years.
For real?
Yep, 15 goals.
Yeah. Okay, so 15 years in the industry. How have you seen things evolve and change? But think about that question. But before you answer that one, answer me this. So how do you see being an electrician as a real line of business, as a real skill set, as a real trade, a way to earn a living, not just for yourself, but for your team members as well?
I just feel like it's a blessing, man. Doing the electrical in the field versus doing electrical for yourself in business is totally different, man. It's a lot of weight, it's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of responsibility, responsibility to get the job done, and responsibility to take care of the men that work for me, and then responsibility to get the job done.
Yeah. And that makes sense too. So a high school student, right, looking at a career path, some people just don't really want to do the college route, some people going the technological route, some other people, want to be other things. So how do you see that? How do you see that being a viable skill set coming out of high school in 2022, 2020, in the future years to come?
What it did for me, doing electrical, it allowed me to be able to take care of my lifestyle at home. When I was I bought a small house when I was 20 years old, and then I had some electrical problems, and I had an electrician come over and do an estimate on it, and at that particular time, the amount of money that I was making, I couldn't afford it. And then about 2 months later, God blessed me with the opportunity to be an electrician. And then I was able to actually do it myself instead of me having to outsource that and pay someone else. So in that aspect, it worked. But then at the same time, this skill of electrical or any trade gives you the ability to do your own thing. So say for instance, if a young brother were to come work for me, I'm going to teach him a skill that he could actually help his mom, his grandma, his auntie, members of the church, someone in the community if they want a small ceiling fan, fixtures, receptacles.
You better generate some revenue on their own without having to, you know what I mean? Without having a whole lot extra in terms of material, in terms of labor. It just start with the basics. Just start up putting up ceiling fan, changing out light fixtures, maybe checking the outlet here or there. Right. But they do need to have some interest in it in terms of being able to try to turn it in, because everybody don't necessarily have to actually do like you did, start their own company. They could just work for another company for the duration of, their career.
Right. It's just skill set for me, man. And it gives them an opportunity to do a little side hustle. Some people have a job here and then they have to take a part-time job, somewhere else. And in this case, you can work for any trade, not just electrical, but any trade, and then you can generate some revenue on the side.
That you're still within the same skill set of what it is that you offer. And that's one thing too, I think about a lot of inner city school options in terms of being able to have, a lot of those programs were stripped from the school, so they don't get that early exposure. And I think what it boils down to in most situations is that being exposed to enough stuff early on in order to be able to help people sidestep those other issues that may come into play, and maybe that have an impact, negative impact in terms of the inner city. So with that being said, I know you do residential. We're standing at a commercial property right now. So tell me the difference in terms of how you kind of scope the work in terms of the commercial versus the residential properties.
It's really just meet and greet, man. It just all depends on who you know and who knows you, like I've told you in the previous. So the thing is, like, you know me from someone who knew me.
Correct.
And
that's how we met. Exactly.
Yes, and then it just depends on what type of project you got going on. And if you have some apartments that you're trying to do downtown, apartment complex that is 8 or more is actually commercial.
Correct.
You don't run roommates, you run MC cables. So,
okay.
It just depends on who you know and what they got going on.
Okay. So in terms of given, of course, the COVID situation happened, you say on the residential things kept moving pretty much at the same pace. How has things been on the commercial front versus the residential since the pandemic happened?
So right now, man, I'm starting to get more commercial jobs than actually residential. In the residential department, man, a lot of investors are taking their houses and they're holding on. They're holding on to them. And then the industry, with everybody wanting to do electrical work or trade, it's become a real competition. But at the same time, like I told you in the previous video, a lot of people know how to pull wire, pull Romex, and MC cable, but a lot of people don't know how to bend conduit. In this case, you got conduit on the wall, you got conduit here, you got conduit there. And it just puts me.
It's a different skill set.
It's a different skill set. And it puts me in a position to be able to get that job.
I see what you're saying, put you in a different category because the vast amount of knowledge that you have, not only does it focus on residential, but you're also able to do commercial because not only are you able to, of course, run the wire, but you're also able to bend and necessarily conduit in order for the wires to go through. And everybody doesn't do that. I know when we walked inside, you had showed me where you had did like the sprinkler system for the stove area or the area in the kitchen.
Fire suppression system.
Yeah, the fire exactly too. So everybody, even though a person may be an electrician, they got an electrical skill set, they may not know how to do that. And you also went on to talk about industrial as well, that you know how to do industrial electrical work also.
So that's just pipe work. It's hard. It's thicker and harder pipe, and you have to thread it and stuff like that. So it's just a different skill set. So it's just like stripes.
Gotcha.
The higher level you get, the more stripes you get.
I know more doors or opportunities.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's true. Well, listen, I'm glad you invited me out to 2 spots today. I think we may have another one in the chamber getting ready to go in terms of another property that we want to take a look at. But listen, thank you again for taking the time to sit down with me. Investors Insight, March 2022. Tune in. Of course, click the link below, as well as just run your camera over the QR code. Thank you again. We had another property that's almost ready to go. They came through. I think this is a new construction property that we're in. Investor Insight series. We're talking to an electrician. Today we want to talk about the particulars about pricing. So I got a property that needs a full renovation. They got an old screw-in panel box. The wiring needs to be updated. I want to add a central AC unit. And what do? Do I just change out the panel box, or if I change out the panel box, what is the potential downside to the electrical outlets and stuff, given that I'm gonna install microwaves, trying to do a wash and dry, we wanna add more slots in the box. So what does that look like? Can I add on to what's already existing? That's one part of the question. And the other part is that from a cost-effective, long-term perspective, what do you suggest that we do? Because as an electrician, the general public's gonna think, well, the electrician gonna always try to charge us to get the most money out of the deal. But from your perspective, what you think the best way to go and why?
Well, so if you are adding new circuits to the house, then we have to rate the panel and rate the circuit to make sure that it will match up. So if you have a old school fuse panel, and you already have a max load of amps that's already included in the panel, then what'll happen is when we add circuits, you won't have anywhere to put it.
Yeah, correct. That's true. Okay, so on that note, so we change out the panel box. So we want to add a wash and dry. Of course, it's an older house. No wash and dry was even around when the house was built.
Right.
So we got to add some lines for that. So what would that cost look like? A new panel box and some additional lines for some new stuff that we're doing to the property, but without starting all the way over, without rewinding the whole house. What does that average cost look like?
So you're looking at about $185 labor and material per single phase circuit, and you're looking at about $350, $375 for a double pole circuit, labor and material. Okay. So we just got to add that up,
So what about the new panel box that we got to add too? Because it's not going to work with the old fuse, the screw-in fuse, is it?
No, not at all. So generally speaking, if we're going to just So you got two types of jobs. You have inspection jobs and then you have non-inspection jobs.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Okay, so what he's talking about now is that some jobs, if you renovate something, you can go in and get somebody to fix it without actually having to have an inspector come out to take a look at it. So what's the difference in those two different prices? Of course, I know if you typically when you go on the inspection route, then it's going to be more costly in addition to the actual permits that you got to pull, but it just be more, maybe more. So what else is involved other than just the permit that you got to pull for the inspection?
So pretty much, man, if it's non-inspection, then we'll come in, you'll tell us what you want. I'm going to give you my expertise and how to get that done and accomplish it in the most economical way that's possible. All right, but with non-inspection, you don't have to have wired smoke detectors. You don't have to have arc fault breakers. It's a difference between 10-2 gauge wire and 10-3 gauge wire, 8-2 gauge wire and 8-3 gauge wire. So that's typically on a non-inspection. On an inspection job, then what we're going to have to do, if we have to open up the walls, we're going to have to make sure that the walls stay open so the inspector can take a look at it.
So it's going to slightly delay the process.
It's going to delay the process. And then also it's going to cost you because one, I have to pull a permit. Two, the inspector is going to come out, and then that's going to be my time to walk with him.
Yeah.
And then it opens up the door if he sees any other defaults.
Yes, it's like an issue that we had on my property that we came looking at this issue, but because there was some other stuff that was previously done by a previous owner, previous electrician, we still had to deal with that because now that he's there, he's seen it. So investors, that's something that you want to be keen on in terms of saying that you want everything redone or some stuff redone and you want to pull a permit. You got to understand, like when you pull in these permits, that you open yourself up for more, not only liability, but more cost associated with getting the initial stuff that you wanted done, and you got to deal with some other stuff that may have to come up too. And that's one thing I do like about Lewis is that he had predicted the likelihood of us running into this exact same issue on one of my investment properties in Midtown that, hey, this is not right here. We're going to try not to have him take a look at it, but of course we can't stop him from looking at it either. But if he does see it, we're going to have to deal with this to the point that's outside of the scope of the initial bid that I gave you. So, yeah.
And you opening yourself up to a little scrutiny too. Why did you paint it like this? And why did you do this? And how come you didn't do that? And it's like, look, man.
So from your on this note, from your vantage point of dealing with the inspectors when they come out, not necessarily on a clean new job, because that's all you got a good rapport with a lot of them, most of them, because there's only so many that really come out in different areas of the city. And so with that being said, on a renovation job, like say you just doing some small stuff, you put in a permit, but you're not going through doing the whole thing. Do you find those to be more problematic dealing with dealing with the code enforcement, or do you find them more ticky when you're just doing the new construction type stuff? Not just a new construction, when you're doing a complete new job. Complete rewiring, I would say.
Well, I mean, it's really either or. I'll give you a scenario. If it's new construction, code enforcement is there to basically find the flaw, find the defect. It's not, hey man, you done an awesome job. It's strictly this strap, this screw, this minimum height, this minimum length. So, it just all depends. Now on a remodel, what typically can happen is he can find me and you, we have a certain agreement.
Correct.
All right, so when code enforcement comes out there, if you're out there and I'm not out there, he's gonna write you a ticket and say, hire a licensed electrician. And he might not even tell you what it is, and if he does, he can give you 6 answers out of the 10 defects that he already seen. So typically what I have to do when I get a job, I have to analyze the whole project and let you know the pros and cons on what I feel like the inspector's gonna look at based off of the NEC, National Electrical Code. So
that's what NEC stands for. I've been seeing it. Yeah.
And even though I will go in there and give you my professional opinion and what needs to be done here, it's still a chance that they might want something else. You know what I'm saying? Because the code book says that the inspector that's in that jurisdiction has legislation.
Okay, so basically they set the precedent. So basically what they say goes. This is what it is.
I'm code enforcement and I said so.
Yeah.
So on one particular job, the inspector might allow this, and then that's on the temp power inspection, and then on a rough-in inspection, when I call in, let's say that particular inspector that's over that jurisdiction in that area, and he's sick. So then another inspector comes out, and then he's going to enforce his rules and policies based off of how he feels and how he does it.
So what you're saying in short is that, okay, we started down the road with one inspector. He got sick and he came in, no, so somebody else came in to go back and check what he was looking at, but now he look at that stuff, but then he ended up coming up with a whole nother list of other things. And based on the way the law is written is that this second guy got a right to do that, and we got to do not only what we agreed to do, and we was almost at the end of doing with the first guy, now we got to do this additional stuff. Yeah. So listen, I think this is really, really critical information for every investor that needs to know in terms of the type of electrician that you're using, in the confidence level, and they interaction and really relationships. Really, you really want to have somebody, I would think that you want to have somebody that know as many electrical code people as possible, so the likelihood of you at least getting a fair shake in terms of what it is you're looking to do, I think that would be, a good idea to kind of have.
I mean, it's like I said yesterday, it's not only who you know, is who knows you.
Yeah.
What type of relationship
that you got with them, those people. Okay. So that's on that front too. So just to finish up with the initial line of questioning is that, so when you're doing, so if a person had a budget, say, listen, I'm buying this property, I'm looking to rent it out long term, do you suggest the whole panel need to be rewired? Really, the house need to be rewired too, but the likelihood of every investor going through, cutting the walls out, and then allowing enough room for you and your guys to come in and run all new wiring to every outlet and every light fixture in the house is, in some cases, not necessarily feasible.
Cost efficient.
Cost efficient. So from that perspective, what do you suggest somebody do? I got a midtown property, built in the early 1900s, a 3-1. I'm putting a new panel box in. What else you suggest I do from a minimalist perspective to still be able to not have a lot of issues coming along down dealing with these dealing with my tenants for the future?
Open minimum walls up, and the wire's going to cost more, because if you take, let's just take this area, right? So if this was the wall, this is the ceiling, this is the floor, what we'll generally do if you have this already done, we'll just cut 2 foot from the bottom up all the way across. So we have a box here, and a box here, and we can pull from this box to this box and this box and that box straight. That's less wire. But if you want to save the sheetrock, you still want to be charged at some other end, which is receptacle here, receptacle here. What we have to do is cut a small hole here, put a cutting box there, bring the wire all the way up to the top, then in the attic, bring it across, and then come back down.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So let's hold it up a little bit. So you're saying basically you cut the 2 feet here, and then so you're able to bridge these 2 at the bottom. But if you're trying to do something up top, typically you want to run this up through the attic space and then come down. Otherwise, you got to cut through the ceiling.
Exactly.
Okay. And that
So,
makes sense.
it just all depends. It's going to kind of take longer. It's just kind of, do you have a sheetrock guy?
Yeah, that's
Is it
exactly
cost
too. Yeah,
efficient?
yeah.
If you don't have a sheetrock guy, then we can come in and we can, you see that's we went from there to there.
Yeah.
If the wall was there, we have to went up to go across, which is more labor time, more wiring. But I mean,
You gotta do what you gotta do.
yeah, we patch sheetrock too. We just don't really paint it and mud it. So it just depends on what the budget like. I mean, we can do the same thing under the crawl space. This way, it's shorter that way, but trying to get somebody to go up on the house.
That's a whole another cost. So either way, you got to pay. It doesn't matter how you want to go about doing it. Okay, so this segment 1, we're wrapping up Investor Insight series with an electrician, electrical solutions. My guy Lewis. We're gonna step outside and kind of wrap this thing up with some more line of questions. Thank you. back with Lewis again, Electrical Solutions, finishing up the interview for Investor Insight Series, March 2022. I wanted to look at the comparison difference. So if I was doing like a new construction, let's say 1,200, 1,500 square feet, how as an electrician, I need everything completely rewired, whether it be new construction or whether it be, we just say new construction, So what would be the new construction price per square feet versus the same amount of square foot if we're doing a complete renovation or complete overhaul of an existing property?
Okay. Generally speaking, we really don't do the old school term of charge by the square foot.
Yeah.
But if it was, it'll be about $6 a square foot.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the reason why we don't really do that anymore is because there's too many variables. All right. So the thing is that $6 a square foot is basic lighting, receptacle every 6 foot from the door, every 10 foot from each receptacle, one light fixture one light switch that's just going to cut the switch on, the light on in one room. But typically speaking,
in these days, you just got so much more going on.
These investors, man, they want ceiling fans, one switch to cut on the light, one switch to cut on the fan. They want to light in the closet.
The dimmer switch,
they want can lights,
USB ports,
USB ports, pendant lights in the kitchen, an island.
Yeah.
So, and then typically it just all depends. Every house that we renovate may not come with a washer and dryer. Now you said new construction. Most new constructions, the houses does have a washer and dryer. But is the stove gas or is the stove electrical? Is the water heater gas or is it electrical? The same as the furnace. So it just all depends. But typically, like a 1,500 square foot house is probably going to run you about in between 9,000, 9,500. And the difference between residential and commercial is commercial wire is ran different. Residential is Romex. You can get Romex for about $142 a roll of 250 foot. MC cable, you're going to get a roll of 12/2, typically 178, something like that. So the price is a little higher. But also in commercial, wire cannot be exposed under 7 foot. So then you have to run conduit. Now, conduit is going to cost a little more, and it's going to take a little more to properly bend that conduit. It's a skill. So typically, if we have the same 1,500 square foot commercial building, roughly it'll be double. The materials double the price, and then the labor will be semi-double the price because it's more work involved. You take a piece of wire and you stretch it from here to here. That's 1, 2, 3, simple. Put a strap, foot from the box on that end, foot from the box on this end. But in commercial, I'm going to have to take some pipe, I'm going to have to bend it, measure it, then bend it, then cut it, then place it. Then in commercial, each box has to be grounded. In residential, the boxes are plastic, so you don't have to ground it. So typically, you could be looking at 18,000.
Yeah, because you're almost doing twice as much as work for the same amount of square footage. Because given the complexities, I guess the different stages that you got to go through. Because even when you put the conduit, you still got to run the wire through the conduit.
Run the wire through the conduit.
Okay, well that makes sense too. So as an investor, if we're speaking to investors specifically, of course, and the general public in terms of how to go about pricing things, and so. As a rule of thumb, as an investor, like if I was going to analyze a property, saying, listen, okay, I need to be able to come up with some quick numbers, just a typical rule of thumb. If I'm going through a property and I'm looking at, I want to be able to kind of get an idea what the electrical's like without the utilities being on. What should I look at aside from looking at the panel box? Like, what else do you think would be ideal as an investor to determine how bad or how good the potential electricity is in the home? Now, this is without being able to turn on any lights, because a lot of times too, the best deals are going to be in the worst condition typically. And so going into something, we want to analyze, and we don't have time to wait till Monday or Tuesday when we're able to get with you and get you out of the property. So give me 1 or 2 ideas to try to get an idea, to give me some insight in terms of how to do kind of like a quick assessment. So we already know, based on what you said, is that, okay, if I rewrite this whole 1,500 square foot house, it's gonna be roughly about $9,500 to maybe like $12,000 on average. But if I'm going in and saying, okay, I just wanna know what is it that I need to replace in this home just real quick before I'm able to get my electrician out, what would be a good rule of thumb to go with that at least give me, to put into my spreadsheet, enough to determine what I need to offer on this property before I'm able to get with you 2 days later, so we can get some real hard numbers. What would be a good number to start with?
Well, first of all, you have to visualize what it is that you want in that building.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know, if it's a commercial building, do you want plugs for hookah? Do you want plugs for people's phone ports? Do you want a band or a DJ or something like that? You gotta think about you
how
know,
you want everything
that dedicated
positioned.
circuit. Yeah. So you know.
What about like on homes and residential? So I got a residential house I'm looking at. I do want to blow out a couple walls, add a few things, and add some drop ceiling lighting.
Do you want a dryer? Do you want gas or electric stove? Do you want?
So how would we price it? So okay, I keep the electrical stove that's already there. I want to wash and dry for sure. I want some ceiling lighting. I want some drop, you know what I mean, some recessed lighting in the kitchen, or maybe some pendant lighting in the kitchen. I want a little island, and I also want, of course, like a, you know, be able to have a TV in the kitchen and also a TV in the form of living room too. So how will we kind of do that?
All right, so as simple as it can be, man. You got a 1,500 square foot house. All right. You would ask me if, or you know, since you have a relationship with me, if you was to say, okay, Lewis, if this was a new construction, and you say that it could be in between 9,000 and 9,500, then you know that's the cap, right? And then you would say, okay, but you know what? I don't want to do all that. I want to do this, this, and this. It's just all about having a relationship with that subcontractor that you have and talk it out with them, and you can actually get what we call a rough estimate, not accurate, rough.
Kind of like over the phone or something.
Yeah,
They say, here goes some pictures, this is what it looks like, this is what I'm trying to do here, and we come up with a number. So really use the 9,000, 9,500 as the baseline, and then kind of work back from there depending on how much less than you want to do. So we saying that 9,500, everything will be new in general. If using that as a baseline and then working backwards from that, we may say, okay, I want to do like half of that. I want to do like half of an upgrade, so it'd probably be like $5,000 or $6,000 on average.
Somewhere around there. You can kind of do the math yourself as an investor, because the thing is that if let's just say if this house is new, right? It's 2022, and let's just say by 2040, right? And then this house is a little beat up, you know, people then ran in and out, you know, or I don't know. So what happened is that you would say the code would change in those times, right? And so then if everything works in here, all you would have to do is update the receptacles, the switches, the lights, and if anything needs to be added, then you count how many things need to be added. So a 120 circuit is going to cost you $175 labor and material per circuit, and then each 240 circuit is going to be roughly $350.
Okay.
So you would just say, okay, Lewis, I need 4 120s and I need 2 220s, and then you just add that up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Now that makes sense. I just want to give the people like a good rule of thumb to kind of go on when they talk to their contractors or trying to get into a market. Of course, we're talking about the Memphis metro market specifically. Of course, it could vary depending on your actual market, but you do want to have the same fundamental questions and insight and guidance from your subcontractor in order to be able to add that to your spreadsheet, be able to come up with quick calculations. In this real estate market that we're in right now, it's critical. Speed is always something that you got to be mindful of, but also too, you also got to have enough information to make an intelligent decision. And so that's the reason that I started Investor Insight. I like to thank my man Lewis for meeting with me 2 days in a row, multiple different properties. I look forward, of course, to doing business with you again.
Yes,
Electrical
sir.
Solutions, reach out to him. I'm gonna tag him. I'm gonna tag his company in the link, and so on social media. So of course, you can reach out to him as well. Terrance Hill, the real estate consultant, 901-691-2722. As always, you get a free consultation no matter where you are on the planet, and then we can go from there to see we're a good fit for each other. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. All right, man.